one of the things that we talked about kind of offline, we haven't had a hell of a lot of time to really talk about, and I don't want to segue to a different story, but it is very much related to it, and that is what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, which, by the way, I have an op-ed coming out on Newsweek, inshallah, if they take it. But what I was going to say was that what you mean about the whole, like, whatever tips elections, and anything is a threat to a democracy that's basically opposing the Democratic Party or liberal values. That's basically sort of the watershed moment we're having here, because what we're seeing right now in Dearborn, Michigan, are protests against the Dearborn Public School, the Dearborn Public School Board, over the use of sexually explicit books, most of which contain LGBTQ content, in school libraries and in classrooms. The interesting aspect of this is that Dearborn, Michigan, happens to have the highest population of Muslims in the United States per capita. It also has the biggest mosque in the United States. And it resides in Wayne County, which hasn't voted for a Republican for president since Herbert Hoover in 1928. So it's not like Dearborn, Michigan is some sort of like, white supremacist Republican conservative right-wing stronghold. It is very, very blue. It just so happens that there are a ton of Muslims there. I think in 2016, I think they estimated somewhere around, and at least in Southeast Michigan, there's somewhere close to 300,000 Muslims living in Southeast Michigan.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Sharia creeps.
Sharia creeps everywhere. So what we're seeing right now happen, and if you haven't been following the news, the question I have to ask is that, will the DOJ step in and label these Muslims protesting these school board meetings as terrorists? Because in 2021, they obviously had no problem doing that with parents protesting school board meetings or staging protests at school board meetings, especially at the urging of the National School Boards Association.
We're going to have articles going to be like the white supremacy in Muslim America.
Yeah, ISIS returns to America
as white supremacy. Like it's fucking hilarious. And the thing is, this is no surprise. This is absolutely no surprise to see Muslims actually and Arabs in general, like, come out and be like, what the fuck is this that you're teaching our children? This is absolute fucking garbage. And what people don't realize is that immigrants here are a lot more socially conservative,
right,
than the average American. And they're also a lot more religious than the average American is as well. So it's going to be really fun to watch how these people, these dumb fucking liberals, are going to handle when Muslims are going to come out in droves, and Arabs are going to come out in droves, and fucking immigrants in general are going to come out in droves, protesting and speaking out against this absolute fucking poison that they are trying to brainwash children with.
So it should obviously speak to where we are as a society. At the very least, if nothing else, this should tell you that it's only okay when a Democrat does it.
Yeah.
Anytime a Republican does the exact same thing, which is what we're seeing right now. Like, if you saw footage of that Dearborn Public School Board meeting, you would think, if these people had been white, this would be national news. If they were Republican, this would be national news. They'd be calling the DOJ, they'd be calling the FBI to investigate the members of the school board. It just so happens that a majority of the protesters were Muslim, and they were holding basically signs that said, like, keep your porno books to yourself, and homosexuality, big sin, and if this is a democracy, like, the majority wins. I think Faye Beebe says, I read they are already banning any signs if you come to the meeting, because they had rescheduled the meeting. Basically what they did is they shut down the meeting because the crowd got really unruly, and they were going to come back. They were just going to recess it. And they're like, no, we're suspending this shit because there's so many people, so many protesters packed at this meeting. So they rescheduled it for Thursday night. at a bigger venue at a high school as opposed to the administrative building. We'll see how that goes. I can imagine it could be even more unruly. But mind you, this is the school board, or at least the Dearborn Public Schools, represents, or at least serves, the city of Dearborn and parts of Dearborn Heights. Can you name the two representatives, Jay, in Congress who represent those particular districts?
Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And it's going to, isn't that right? Am I wrong? No, I'm wrong.
Ilhan Omar is in Minnesota.
Wrong. Minnesota, not Michigan.
Hey, you got 1 out of 2.
They both start with them. I'm sorry, but they both start with them. All right.
1 out of 2 ain't bad, Jay. It's still an F minus. But you're still
no. Hey, excuse me. In this educational system, a 50% is like a fucking D minus for these kids.
So, with that being said, you have Rashida Tlaib and you have Debbie Dingle.
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 But it's going to be funny watching Rashida Tlaib like come out against her own Muslim, like fucking an Arab population, because she's going to be in a rock and hard place. If they demand her to make a statement over this type of stuff, she's going to have to pick a side, and it's going to be fucking hilarious to watch her like stumble on her words.
Look, well, that's the thing.
And so if we had a real journalistic fucking institution here in the United States, she would be asked these fucking questions, but she's not going to be, because our journalistic fucking institution here in the United States is garbage. It's absolutely horseshit. It is so garbage that to the point that I feel like I need to be like MBS and just like start the whole thing over. So,
Neocon for Ron Paul says that Catholic Hispanics are based.
That was a good one. That was a good reference.
What?
That was a good reference. Nobody, it went over everyone's head.
What was that?
That I said I should be like MBS and start the whole thing over. What did he do to a journalist in Saudi Arabia? Sorry, in Turkey.
Okay, Jay, I'll give you that one. That was pretty good. No, there was a story that I wanted to show you that came from the Detroit Free Press, and I have to go through the fucking paywall thing. But basically, you're already seeing a little bit of division already within the Dearborn Muslim population, because you have the police chief, the Dearborn police chief, Isa Shaheen, who, of course, got to be a Muslim, right?
It's a Jew.
Catholic Hispanic. Basically, this is what he told the crowd at the Monday meeting. He said, "Please calm down. Let's have respect for each other. We can have a spirited debate, but we can't conduct ourselves this way, guys. We just can't. We're better than this. Dearborn is better than this. This community is better than this. We're brothers and sisters, regardless of race, ethnicity, and religion."
Shut the fuck up.
That's
what I love to say to these
true, but I don't know.
Better than this.
Hold on, I'm trying to look for. There was
We're better than this. What does he expect people to do? Like just to sit silent while their fucking children are brainwashed? I don't understand this level of thinking that these people have. This is a fucking outrage for parents, and it should be. And people should respect that. They are being taught things that are not what they want their children to be taught or brainwashed to. This is not teaching them anything. This is actually damaging their own fucking children. So for a parent to be outraged over this shit is fucking justified. And you have people in authority that want to downplay that the brainwashing their children over this fucking agenda is actually is fine, and it's totally fine. And I think the parents are in the wrong.
I think what's interesting about this is that specifically, and just going back to Shaheen's comments, he's basically asked or pleaded with the crowd to not embarrass Dearborn, meaning that the whole idea of Dearborn being in the news for this particular story was worse to them than or at least worse to this police chief than the idea that these children, or at least students, were learning about. Now, I actually, because I wrote an op-ed on it and I did my research, that basically I looked through the books that they actually have on the restricted list that they complained about. Mind you, these are complaints from both Muslims and Christians. One of which the book, you remember the movie Precious, Jay, right? Precious came out in like 2009-ish. No? Okay.
I don't watch shit like that.
You
Sorry.
don't watch movies? Okay. All right, whatever. Well, the movie Precious, the book that was based on that, Push, that was one of the books that was it's obviously a very like tragic, like, story about a teenage girl who is the victim of both rape and incest. That is obviously, like, you can look at that and be like, all right, like that's, maybe for an older group of students. But if you get to like some of the other stories, other books, like this book is gay, Flamer, and The Lovely Bones. The Lovely Bones I don't really care about. That's more about
Gay
like rape and
Flamer.
murder.
Is that the actual name of the book that they're teaching children
Reading
to children?
It's literally called This Book is Gay and Flamer. Now, I had to go through both books. Not that I haven't, but they have like some published images of the book online. They go into explicit detail about not just the sexual acts, but how to perform them. And gets into pornography and masturbation, like these are books that they have in these schools. Now they're doing all of doing these reviews of stuff. And Jay, in 2021, when parents were complaining about this stuff, it was just dismissed outright, being like, there's no possible way that they would have like pornographic materials or sexually explicit materials being taught to students at school. Well, lo and behold, the Muslims and the Hispanic Catholics come out and say, actually, we oppose this. Mind you, the Imam Al Qazwini, who's leading the charge, he did an interview on France 24 saying that he's not proud to be an American while Donald Trump is president. Doesn't really sound like a right winger to me, Jay.
No, not at all. And a lot of these people vote Democrat like almost 80% of the time. And the fact that they're being completely blind to the concerns of them and concerns of immigrants and religious immigrants and Muslim immigrants and everything is going to see a huge shift. We're going to see a lot of these fucking board members being voted out because they are not listening. They don't want to listen. They don't give a fuck. They're supposed to be there to listen to the concerns of the parents. We have lost the fucking plot when it comes to our educational system. When you're teaching children at the age of 6, you're teaching them 1 + 1 = 2. You're not teaching them that they can be they can chop their dicks off and become a fucking unicorn. That's not what this is supposed to be about.
Okay, I'm not laughing at your rant here. I'm laughing at this Hank Habibi comment that says, "I love the irony of you doing these stories when in fact your show is a pit of degeneracy."
Oh shit!
Let's go to some of the other comments. Spencer, you want to highlight the ones that you favorited? Faye Beebe says the Dearborn parents weren't violent. They weren't only advocating for their kids. They were exercising their right to speak freely and protest. What is more American than that? Exactly.
Absolutely
but
true.
That speaks to the case of, if there's nothing else you can take away from this particular part about the protesting school boards, is that it's only okay when Democrats do it.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, then the most fundamental point of all of this is that regardless of what your views are, and this possibly speaks to something far more nefarious and malicious, is that they are downright sexualizing children. And the fact that they're doing, and then you got to think about, all right, is there a pedo agenda here? It's kind of hard to ignore. And
No,
it's
it really
obviously
is, and people they try to dismiss this as like homophobic or fucking transphobic or all this type of shit. And it's like, no, we're here to protect those kids.
Yeah.
Fuck you. You are an adult. Like, these teachers are adults and shit. Why are we protecting these fucking adults over children? They've lost the
100%.
fucking plot.
Lost the
Essentially.
plot. Janice.
That's Carl Ferris over here saying, I'm here now. Can you start the show over? Yes. So in the beginning, Carl, we were talking about how you're 0-3 on every time we've played in the fantasy league. So if you want to start there, we can. That's
we can
totally
start at
fine
that
with
point.
me. We can start at that point.
I think we should start at that point.
I think so too. So guys, if you don't know, Carl is the one who started the Habibi Fantasy League, and I have jack shit knowledge on anything about football right now. Like, nothing. Even last year, I had no idea about nothing. And he spent months like researching who's the best players to pick, blah, blah, blah. And I just went in there being like, oh, this is McAnus. I'm going to pick him. And I beat him 3 fucking times that we've played. And I'm not even doing that great in this fantasy league either. And I still beat his ass. That's fucking insane.
Janice says pit of degeneracy should be on the t-shirt. Yeah, we should. I mean,
that is what is going to be.
That's fire right there. But again, getting back to the point about this whole school board fight, and look, it shouldn't be. We've talked about this at least in 2021 when a year ago when they were when the National School Board Association sent that letter to President Biden, equating these protests by parents and likening it to domestic terrorism. The DOJ stepped in and responded, saying they were going to investigate. How will they handle it going forward? And it sounds like they care more about these school boards being receiving negative attention than they care about sexualizing kids. I mean,
well, it's not only the negative attention. They care more about exposing this fucking agenda that they're holding. That's what it is. That is what it is. It's all by design.
It's all by design. But obviously, it's something that every parent, teacher, and decent human being should oppose. And this is how they spin it. Look at what happened in Florida. They just earlier this year, they came out with a parental rights and education bill, which is the name of the law that passed and Ron DeSantis signed into law. They called it the Don't Say Gay bill. You want to know why? Because they're so adamant about making it anything that has to do with controlling education an act of bigotry, because maintaining control or at least having some level of say or power or autonomy over what your kids learn is control taken away from the state. It's power taken away from the state. The state has less power now, at least in the state of Florida, over what they teach your child. And for the longest time, at least most people, I mean, I can probably speak to my parents' experience because they originally thought it was like everything that they were taught in corporate media, like MSNBC, saying that this is a bill that is anti-gay, and you can't say the word gay in Florida. And I remember Baba pulling me aside and saying, like, you know, when I actually read the bill, it's all about just returning, just making sure that kids don't learn about this stuff and before they hit puberty. Like, that's not like,
it's not
I'm fully on board with that. He's like, I'm fully on board with that. I'm like, see how they twist your mind, see how they brainwash you.
I know exactly, but you don't have to lie. He pulled you aside and be like, I think you're going to get executed when Jay goes over there, and how gay you guys are going to be together. But that's fine. You don't have to speak the truth here. It's all good. But yeah, when people actually read the bill and actually saw what it was in it, they will see that it's actually pretty fucking reasonable in comparison. But they can't handle it. They cannot handle it. They want to force feed your children into thinking that they can be any gender that they want if they wear a dress, that they can chop their dicks off and their fucking breasts off. We have a epidemic here in the United States where we had over 528% of adolescent girls saying that they're trans. This is a huge fucking jump, and we're not even really willing to actually have an open conversation about this because it's going to be labeled as you're transphobic or bigoted.
Yeah, you will get banned. You will literally get banned from YouTube or Twitch even for having the discussion. I literally talked to a creator the other day. He was having a debate with a trans woman about and this is a guy on a progressive, a leftist, basically saying that he doesn't believe that trans women are women, because if trans women were women, they wouldn't be called trans women. They'd just be called women. Right? That's that to anyone with 2 brain cells could, see that logic, right? Just because he had a conversation with that particular that trans woman who was also running a simulcast stream at the same time, she got suspended from Twitch for 3 days, and she's a trans woman.
And it just goes to show that these algorithms, they're not true. Like, this is not an algorithm. These are people actually going in and hitting buttons and fucking banning people because they're not pushing the narrative that they want to hear. And the fact that we are giving these social media accounts the liberty to be publishers without the accountability is absolute horseshit.